Welcome to the Laurent Collective podcast, where we go deeper than just surface talk.
Each week, we'll explore everything from family, business, creativity, culture, and faith.
To make sure not to miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and hop on to Instagram at Laurent Collective to chat with us about this episode.
Hello.
Hello, welcome back, or welcome to the podcast.
Yes, definitely. Before we get started, we're going to ask you guys a favor. We are going to ask you if you could please, yes, we're begging you, rate and review the podcast. If you are listening, obviously you're listening if you're hearing my voice right now. Yeah. That would be so helpful because it does help others find us. That is the reason. It is not a vanity thing for us. It is just so other people can help find our podcast and our things. So we would appreciate that. Today, we thought we would get into what to do with your kids in the summer. So this is definitely a family focus. And we are talking about because we know, well, different parts of the world are on summer break already. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Many of our friends in the States are on summer break. And so maybe we should have done this a little earlier. But you can start this now. And that's okay because that's often
maybe you've been struggling and how to deal with
exactly. So maybe like, wait, I didn't come on with a plan here. We have about another month to go for our kids to be out for the summer. So we are thinking about this. You're probably wondering, because first of all, a little bit of background. We have 3 kids. They're 3 different ages.
No way.
That's obvious. I don't know. We could have had twins.
I mean, I guess that's true.
It's not. I mean, thanks for calling me out on that one. Yes. So what I was trying to say is there are 3 vastly different ages. We have a teenager, we have a tween, and then we have, she'll be 8 by the time summer rolls around. Yeah. So we have that dynamic going on too. But we've been in all different stages throughout, obviously, and we've always had to think about our summers. Ever since we have had kids, we have had, well, I guess maybe since they've been in school and they've had like a technical summer, we have been running our own businesses too. Mm-hmm. And so that is a whole different dynamic as well, which we will get into too. So if you have your own business and maybe it's the first summer that you've had with this, or you're into many summers and you're thinking,
still trying to figure things out.
What do I do? Yeah. We were on a mentoring call recently, and that was one of the questions people kept asking, like, summer's coming up. What are you doing with your kids?
Or just in general, like, how do you get stuff done?
How do you do this? Yeah. So, I think the first thing I would say about summer, and I'm saying this to myself even, you have to lower your expectations of what you're going to get done. And that's sometimes hard to handle and that kind of stuff. But like, just, while we're going to talk to you a little bit about how we do a schedule with our kids, you also have to hold it slightly lightly too. Mm-hmm. And you have to be flexible, which is not always the easiest thing for many of us.
Well, I mean, I kind of equate it with like what happened during lockdowns. There were some days we were like, if we can get 2 hours of work done, then that was a good day.
Yes. Lockdown was good practice.
And so summertime. I think just like realizing, you can come up with this amazing schedule and all that stuff, but more than likely each day is not going to go the way you think it's going to go. So just be prepared for that. Be
this
okay
conversation with that idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think the first thing we want to be real with you, for us, because we have our own businesses and stuff, our own business, and we used to have multiple businesses. That's why I keep saying that. But for us, it means we are still working during the summer. Now, yes, there will be times where we take off and we are resting and we aren't working. Mm-hmm. But that's for our kids, it's 6 weeks. And for the summer, for where you may be, it may be 2 full months or 3 months. I mean, it's all over the board, right?
Right.
And so we are not right now able to take off a full 6 weeks. And so it means we are also working from home. Our kids are are at home and that kind of thing. And that's just a lot of chaos.
Well, it's not chaos. It's just, there's just
a lot of stuff.
Lots of, people wanting their things.
Yes, exactly. So all kids will respond to different things. So we're going to tell you what works for our family. This may not work for your family, but we're just after, we do have a 15-year-old, but then, like we said, we have the others as well. The others, that sounds bad. for us, it has helped to have an actual schedule going into things, because we have one child in particular that really helps, like the feeling of like security, like knowing what's happening.
Yeah.
Of course, we always have to constantly say, this is flexible, this can change. But it also does help us also hold ourselves accountable for, I'm working during these times and I'm done during these times.
Yeah.
Because the kids, when you communicate to something like that, they will hold you accountable to that.
Yeah.
And so we thought we would kind of, how we view summer is we view it as, this is not the time that we're going to pick in our business to work really heavily on a project.
And launch new things and
Exactly. Now, I say that in the same time that you may have a book that you're working on that is under a contract that like we don't have a choice in that schedule. I mean, you can communicate back and forth your availability, but I realize you could have like a freelance job, or you have you have clients you're working for, and that's hard because you don't necessarily get to dictate that schedule. But so if you're working on those kinds of things in particular, try to really take the other things down that you're trying to do in your business maybe, and don't pick the time when your kids are home to work really hard on those, because then you're just we've done that and it ends in frustration.
Yeah, definitely. I think just understanding the expectations of, one, if you have kids at home, things are going to look differently, but also like in your business, like if this is coming, like summer isn't just something that suddenly happens. Like we know it's coming.
It does feel like it suddenly happens every year, but
thinking of the things that you're doing, thinking of the projects, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully, if you're running your own business, you can be mindful of that. I know sometimes things get away from us, and we can't do the things on the schedule that we were hoping for, and things change and all that kind of stuff. But there's some planning that could potentially happen that will allow you to at least, not free isn't the right word, but like your schedule can be a little bit more available. And that the pressures of certain projects and things like that, can be taken down a little bit more if that this certain things are coming, and you can plan for that and all that kind of stuff.
And that is hard if you are on one of those longer summer breaks, for sure. And I also want to say, like, I really recognize we're talking to people right now that have their own businesses, but a lot of you now are working from home. And so this applies to you as well. And so before we get into what we do for a schedule, I wanted to like put forth other options of things for kids too, especially if that's new for you. And well, it's not new for a lot of us because we did have to work from home during COVID, but maybe it's new for you to be home in the summer. Like this is the first summer maybe that it wasn't like more lockdown-ish, and that kind of thing that you're like, I can actually put my kids in activities, because the past couple summers, at least here, that hasn't always been a thing, or the activities have been so packed that you haven't been able to sign them up. So before we get into what we do with our kids, I do want to say, like, there have been seasons where we have had somebody come and stay with our kids during the day, and we've gone someplace else to work. We did that for a while. And there are all forms of that. For us, we were in a community that we knew several teenage girls, like high school girls, that were really responsible, and our kids loved and stuff. And so they would come from like a 10 to 4 or 5 kind of time frame, and just, they do everything from like take our kids to little water parks to play with it. I mean, it was just, really nice to have them and be able to do that. So we have gone through seasons where we've done that. And sometimes it worked for us more because in that home, at least, we did not have a place we could go and shut the door and not be there. Also, our kids are wired. Everyone's kids are different. Our kids are wired to know when we're in the house and to come to us for things instead of going to that person. So then they were constantly interrupting us. And so we did that, where we at one point had an office space we could leave and we could go. And that's how we handled that.
There was this season too where we went to your parents' house.
Yeah, we worked at my parents' house because they were gone working, and we just brought, we didn't even have laptops. We had our big computers. We logged back and forth, but whatever. You do what you have to do.
Yeah, exactly.
We just kept our like old Mac computer boxes and put them back in it to and fro, and it was fine. So that's one option, is finding a way. And I know Depending where you live, like that's a really expensive option here. Where we live in London, like nannies and stuff like that, they're just super expensive. So that's not something for us to do during the summertime right now.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, in
that
the
kind
season,
of
that's
thing.
just not, yeah.
That's not our season. So but that is an option. It was much, there are sometimes there are other options, cheaper options sometimes. Sometimes you can switch with a friend if, or a neighbor or something like that of like, hey, like, can I do this day and you do that day and we'll switch our kids? That's a great option. We did have some place we took our kids for a while. There's a lot, especially in the States, there's a lot of places that, people do a certain number of group of kids that they watch out of their house. Our kids absolutely loved that season when they were going there. They loved Miss Cindy's house.
Yeah.
So those are some other things. You can also, obviously, most places have things like activities that your kids can go to some,
Camps.
I don't know, like tennis camp from 9 to 3 or something like that. Or there's overnight camps. Those tend to be more pricey, or your kids may not be ready for that. There's that as well. But there are usually lots of different activities. And I think what's great is, usually, I know we even found this in the States, so this isn't just a thing because we live in a major city, but usually there's everything, like our kids did things like Lego camp and stuff like that when we were in the States. Like here, there's everything from coding to theater. It doesn't have to be sports related, and that kind of stuff that you can find stuff for them to do. Again,
I'm sure that's anywhere.
Yeah. Again, I know that means most likely that costs money. And that kind of thing that's usually not free.
But I think if you look at it in a sense of like, okay, if I'm paying this much money for my kid to be this might sound bad, but out of the house for a certain amount of hours a week, like that allows me to create business or create, things that will bring in, way more income. So it might be worth it, just if you have to pay a little bit every week or every month or whatever to have your kids in something.
Yeah, that's very true.
Just to think of it in that sense too.
So that is a couple of those ideas,
thoughts,
but we thought that we would get into, because we know, with prices rising everywhere in the world and stuff like that, that may not be a reality for you. And we've made the decision this year not to put our kids, unless something comes up they're super interested in, we have not made the decision not to have them in like clubs and activities over the summer for this year. It could change. Like I said, there could be something that one of them says, I really, really want to do this, and we'll sign them up for it. But so we wanted to share with you, if you are trying to stay on a budget and you're like, I need my kids to just not be signed up for things, and that kind of thing, what are you going to do with them? And so we thought we would run through a typical day, on what we have done with our kids. So here is what, again, this may not work for your family, but we're just sharing what will work with our family. And maybe what we'll try to do, so look at the show notes and we'll see, maybe we can create a free download of like the typical schedule we have done that you could then edit and change it and stuff like that if you want to. But for us, it means that we have just gone through like Monday through Friday, like the work week. And we've said, this is what your typical schedule is going to be. And so a typical day may be, it's summertime. And so we have said, like, you can get up and you can do breakfast and you can watch some TV shows for whatever, like Netflix, Disney, whatever it is, for this amount of time. So what that typically does for us is our kids are at the age where they can get their breakfast together most of the time.
For the most part.
Sometimes I'm like, why? They're like, we're hungry. You know how to pour a bowl of cereal.
Yeah.
But that's another topic. But even if they aren't, like, use that time maybe of, like, we say you have breakfast and then you can watch, I think it's that we give each kid 30 minutes. So they each get a 30-minute show, or some of Veda's shows are like super short. So equaling that time. But that gives us an hour and a half. We do typically get up before then. It depends, like, and get ready. So then while they're watching that hour and a half of shows, like, that is like however you want to start your work day.
Yep.
Get into some things during that time. And generally they're kind of self-sufficient during that time. You could extend that time to longer. That's okay if that's the case. Works. That's just generally what we have done. And then depending on the day, so we have certain days that we call gaming days in our house. And so I don't remember what we've done. Sometimes it's 3 times a week. Sometimes it's 2 times a week, whatever it has been. And they know that during those days they are allowed to play games. We also include YouTube in that because our kids like to watch people play games on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you have children, they do this too.
Yeah.
I watch it and I want to fall asleep,
Yeah,
but
I don't get it.
They love it for some reason, so whatever. But
I
we
would
say
much rather be playing the video game and trying to figure things out than watch somebody.
so we loop
Like-
those two together and we just call it technology time or tech
Yep,
time.
tech time.
So your choice, if you want to play a game or you want to watch YouTube or whatever it is, fine, but that is during that. So sometimes, depending on the day, we may do that in the morning after shows.
Mm-hmm.
We may do that after lunch and that kind of stuff, but it will range on when that is. Normally, for us, we don't give our kids more than 2 hours because once they've passed that threshold, they start to behave a certain way after they've been on that either YouTube or playing games, video games. And so that's just us. Again,
Yeah.
sometimes yes, we're like, fine, have another hour.
Yeah. Or yeah,
But
it might,
we usually pay for it.
I
so
mean, to be honest, for us, it might have been like we know it's a busy day work wise, or like somebody
Yeah.
has meetings and things like that, and so it might actually we might just say like you have a couple extra hours than
Yeah.
normal today, or whatever.
We
so.
tend to like to create, so if they've watched shows in the morning, we tend to like to create some breathing room when they're not on the
Yes.
screen. So that's when we will if they're watching shows, that we'll say after lunch you can play games.
Yeah.
But tends to be, again, we are big on our kids learning how to play by themselves and having like individual playtime. And I know that is, we've done that since they were little. It's really hard getting into it when they're little, though. It takes a lot of build-up, but trust me, if you put in the work of doing it, it will pay off when they're older.
Yeah.
And so typically after shows and stuff, we've told our kids, like, you have to get dressed and brush your teeth and things like that. We do have days where, like, just stay in your pajamas all day, but in general. And then we'll say, like, either it's a play together time, which typically that means our two youngest are playing together and our oldest might be doing drums or doing whatever. And then, or we'll say that's time to play by yourself. And what that means is sometimes, especially in the summer, your kids need a break from each other. And so it's like, however they can go to separate corners and do their thing, great.
Yeah.
Our kids are really into art and drawing and coloring and stuff. And so we will typically put that into the schedule somehow, not every day, but then they know. And
I mean, but they can always access that stuff, even if
yeah,
it's like
it's out
independent time. Like
during
it's
the
always
individual
available
play
as
time.
well, too,
Exactly.
so.
Yeah. Or when they're playing together, they'll do that. But they
Yeah.
know, and typically during the summer, we'll get some fun new things that they've not done, like, I don't know, clay or something like that again, in general, is stuff that they can do on their own that I can set up, we can set up on the table and boom. Like when Veda was a little bit younger, all she wanted to do was Play-Doh. And so she would always get the Play-Doh out and
play.
she was at it for like an hour.
Yeah.
The boys, when they were younger, we had to monitor with that a little bit more. It was usually more like thrown on the wall and stuff, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then we do have a lunch. They know we have a lunch break and that mommy and daddy stop working during that time. And that we have, time together and that kind of thing. You can put in reading time. Again, we'll put this so you guys can see all this, but we have learned before we jump into like a dinner type of thing, like having some quiet time in the house before is always really good. So like reading time or whatever they want to do for quiet time. And then we even have a rule, if you will, of like, you need to clean up your mess before we have dinner. So like if they've been like playing during the day and stuff like that, and there's, Legos over here and Veda's got her dolls in the corner and all this stuff, like everyone needs to clean things up before we have dinner. The thing now, that may seem like a lot. So, but
yeah, well, I also too wanted to remember as well, like something that we initiated during lockdown that I think we'll probably keep in schedules is like you and I would take a break in the afternoon.
Yes.
For like a half hour.
Yeah.
And we would have tea time.
Yes, that's when we
with the
did. We
kids.
did reading, but
Where
yeah,
we
you
would
could do
read
whatever.
together and just like spend a half hour
With the
together
kids.
just to relax and like that kind of thing. So I would like to instill that this summer
Yes,
a little
no,
bit to get
it
back
does.
into that rhythm because I think that was really fun and I think our kids really enjoyed it. Again, that whatever works for you guys, but I think
So
that
the
was
thing I would
something
say,
really
if
cool.
you, I think we'll give some examples. If you are two parents and you're working both at home, or you're trying to run your business and stuff like that, and it's both of you, one thing you can do with this schedule is say, because it really, I know it's hard when you're working on something and you get interrupted and you're like, oh, everyone, like, and now I have to go do this thing, because even though we've given our kids a schedule, they still need things.
Oh, yeah.
If they can't reach something, they'll get in a fight. I mean, you know, we'll hear screaming, all this stuff like that. Like, we still get interrupted, so I don't want it to make like this.
Oh, yeah.
They go and they do their own thing, and then
it's like,
we don't see them for 4 hours. That is not realistic.
Like, proper like birds chirping and it's beautiful. And
yes,
no.
You know, one thing I did put in our schedule is like we do ask, we put in when they have snacks, because otherwise they will just eat the entire time, and then we have no food. And so we say like, you get a snack at this time and you get a snack at this time. And so, and we even sometimes will put what the snack is so they don't eat the stuff that was meant for dinner or something like that, because that happens often. I'm like, where did this go? That's what we were having for dinner. So we put snack times in. But if there are two of you, one thing that we did and it worked really well is that we would say in the morning, and we put it on the schedule, in the morning, you go to mommy if you need something. In the afternoon, you go to daddy if you need something. So we tried to split the day up 50-50. And so if they would come to me, I'm like, nope, you need to ask daddy about that, and that kind of thing. And it was so that one person could have really good, like, focused time of work.
Yeah, exactly.
I realized then if you are the only person at home and your spouse is working outside of the house, or you are a single parent, or sharing parent roles and stuff like that, that is not easy. You can't just say, go to somebody else, because it's just you.
Yeah.
I think that's when, again, and we're saying this and it's still not perfect, the kids will still go to me, or you'll need to go out to a meeting or something. It's supposed to be my focus time of work, and the kids are here.
We usually look at that, though, before the week starts.
That's true.
If I have a meeting or something like that, then obviously I would be on in the morning. If I have a meeting in the afternoon, then, and things like that. So.
I think if your kids are older, you can do something of like the shut the door policy, where like if the door is shut, it means I'm really focusing on something.
We did that for a while.
We did that during COVID for sure. And like it needs to be an emergency. Now, of course, our kids are like, it's an emergency, and it's not an emergency. It's what they have clarified, like Veda especially. I have a scratch on my knee. It's not even bleeding. And she's like, it's an emergency. So again, we're saying all of this and laughing at the same time because it's not perfect. But there are some different things that you can do. Or that's when you just have to know you have given your kids a schedule and it's not going to be perfect. Or you find the things like, think of the things that your kids, and every kid's going to be different in this. Think of the things that they get immersed in, and they do play for a long time with it without needing your assistance.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, of course, but, you know, for one of our sons when he was younger, as long as he had his, like, Thomas the Train stuff out and things like that, he would rebuild the track and stuff like that, and he would spend, it was the one thing he would spend a good amount of time on without us having to be there as well. So, you know, for our middle son right now, it's like, as long as he's got his supplies to be able to draw, sketch, and things like that, like, he will disappear and be quiet for a long time doing those things. And again, each of our kids are wired differently with that. Like Veda will go and play in her dollhouse and stuff like that by herself. Now, when we first say it's time to play on your own, are they like, my God. Yay? Yeah. No.
What am I supposed to do?
Well, I'm bored. I don't have anything to do. And we're like, should we just get rid of all of your toys? I mean, like, I'm sure you guys have said all these things.
Yeah.
If you can get past the boredom part, we'll go find something.
You have to get past the
boredom. But it's usually you. I will literally be like, I'm sorry. Like, it sounds horrible. I'm like, I'll put on my headphones and be like, you just haven't found something to do yet, or you're about ready to be creative, which they hate when I say that.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And they often do. I mean, sometimes you have to be, like, there are times too that you have to be like, okay, that's what they've decided to do. Like, we have a little art box and our kids have taken string or yarn or something, and as long as it's not damaging the house, fine. Where they made like a laser course where we couldn't get to the bathroom without walking and like ducking under
like,
yarn and stuff
because
they had taped it to the walls, but they were busy literally for 3 hours doing that. Fine. Like a bit of a pain when we had to go to the bathroom.
It's always been helpful too is, you know, when we get to that point and it's like, okay, you have independent play time or play together time, you know, having it's been helpful for us. We found, like, you know, lists on Pinterest, or we have a couple books in our house that, you know, suggest certain things that the kids can do. And so, like, you know, I think that's always helpful because, again, if they come to you and you're like, oh, I'm so bored, I don't have anything to do. Well, did you, like, look at the list today? Like, there's a list in the kitchen and it has, you know, 100 ideas of things to do in the house. you know, have you looked at that today? Is there anything on there that you want to do? Or like, hey, have you looked at the rainy day book? It's raining outside. Obviously, you guys can't go outside. So, you know, is there something in that book? So I think that that's always been helpful too, to have like different things around the house that can maybe spark something for them if they don't want to like do the thing that they've always been doing all week. So
I think I will look too. We'll try and link that as well. I'm pretty sure I have a list that we had that I had put together that said basically if I'm bored or I don't know what to do, and then there was a list of stuff. So I'll look for that as well for you guys to be able to have too, because that has been helpful. Now I know we have said a lot of the stuff and we're saying this and our kids are older. They're past that age where it's a lot of hands-on stuff. If you have toddlers, babies and stuff like that, it can be more of a challenge. We still did it. We still, you know, we had, like I said, we had our businesses during that time.
But we were lucky. We had each other and we were working together at that time. So one person could be like on and focusing on the toddler while you or I were working. So I think that was helpful.
Yes. And that's probably, there's take advantage of nap times. Or that's when you can put, I do remember, you know, that was also where we would call it like downtime, like quiet time type of thing, and be like, that's when like can have a snack and sit, that's okay to watch a show during that time. You know, usually at that age, you're not playing video games and stuff like that. And so I think maybe that'll be a separate podcast we do of like, how do you run a business when you have little ones? Because we did do it. We started our business with a 1-year-old. Well, he was younger than that. He was probably like 8 months when we started our business, and then we fully launched into our business full time after he was 1, and then we added another child, and so we do have quite a bit of experience in what that looks like when you have really young ones, and it's hard. And if that is you, like that's a hard season, and that's where summer may not even affect that, because that may be what your everyday looks like.
That's true.
I know here, like, it was a bit of a shock to us when we realized like Veda could go into full-time school when she was 3.5, which is a really amazing thing that they have here in the UK. So that changed things. And then she did have a summertime, or, you know, when we were in the States, up until they were 5, they were in like a preschool, and from like 18 months to 5 or whatever. But that was only, for us at least, was only 9 to 11 or 9 to 1. But it still was a little bit of time, but not that much, because you still had to take into account like driving them there and stuff like that. True. It did feel like by the time you got home that it was like, oh, I have to go right back to get them. So again, that costs money though. We were able to find some cheaper options and stuff like that. But so maybe we'll do a podcast on like, how do you do a business when you have really small kids? But we thought we would focus more on summertime right now, and that kind of thing. And so we'll look in the show links and stuff like that, and we will hopefully give you some tools that are helpful. But we just want to say to you, like, be flexible. It's hard.
Have grace with yourself.
There's
certain days that you just won't get barely anything done. And
try, like Pat said, even if it's that, you would be shocked after we have that 30 minutes with the kids of like, maybe we're like, hey, we're gonna play a board game with you guys. Don't pick Monopoly, because that lasts forever. Pick a board game that you know is going to take about 30 minutes or something like that. Like, hey, we're going to do a board game with you guys this afternoon. And then you have that time. And then there's something about them knowing they've had that time with you or looking forward to it, that they're able to go do some things during that. We have the flexibility that we do have a teenager that can take the kids to the park or on a walk or a bike ride or something like that. And sometimes that can be like a neighbor that you know that is, teenagers would love to get paid a small amount. They don't know, a small amount to do some of those things. And the kids then will like adore those people and things like that as well. So we hope we've given you some ideas. And like we said, be flexible. Also try to enjoy that time as well, as much as you can, and have some downtime with them too. And just, again, we put on the schedule, we are working during this time, and they know that is the case.
Taking away all the unknowns is going to be really helpful. So let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys, though, because we are still, like, this is not perfected. We always try new things, and sometimes they go really well, and sometimes they go really wrong. You might have amazing ideas.
So we'd love to hear from you of what you do with your kids during the summer, especially if you're not able to put them in activities or have somebody watch them and stuff. We would love to hear how you handle that. So hope this has been a bit of an encouragement and gave you some ideas, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Laurent Collective podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, which helps others find our podcast. Continue the conversation with us over on Instagram at Laurent Collective.
We look forward to going deeper than just surface talk with you again next week.